Are you sure the science you rely on wasn't quietly written by the very companies it protects? And if it was, how would you know?
Welcome to Dr. Mercola's Cellular Wisdom. Stay informed with quick, easy-to-listen summaries of our latest articles, perfect for when you're on the go. No reading required. Subscribe for free at mercola.com for the latest health insights.
Hello, and welcome to Dr. Mercola's Cellular Wisdom. I'm Ethan Foster, and today we're examining the retraction of a highly cited glyphosate safety paper and what it teaches you about evaluating research, regulation, and your everyday exposure.
I'm Alara Sky. This episode looks at why a 2000 review that reassured regulators about glyphosate was pulled 25 years later, how internal company emails revealed ghostwriting, and how that single article influenced policy, research, and public opinion long after the deception surfaced.
The paper appeared in Regulatory Toxicology and Pharmacology in April 2000, credited to 3 outside scientists and widely used to claim glyphosate posed no human health risk, no cancer, reproductive, developmental, or endocrine harm. For years, agencies cited it as proof that glyphosate-based herbicides were safe when used as directed.
Internal emails changed the story. Company scientists planned and wrote the manuscript, while outside authors edited and signed off. One message even proposed repeating the ghostwrite approach for future publications. After publication, company officials praised employees for years of data collection, writing, and relationship building with the named authors.
The timing mattered. In the late 1990s, Roundup-ready seeds were rolling out, and the patent on glyphosate was expiring. A seemingly independent authoritative review helped defend product lines and differentiate them from generics. Executives openly celebrated the paper's strategic value to protect market share.
Even after the ghostwriting became public in 2017 litigation, the paper kept shaping the conversation, collecting more than 1,000 citations. That persistence reveals how a single, trusted reference can anchor risk assessments, media narratives, and encyclopedia entries, even when credibility erodes.
Retraction finally came after researchers formally alerted the journal. The notice stated the review leaned on unpublished company studies, failed to incorporate existing long-term toxicity and carcinogenicity research available by 1999, and drew safety conclusions from selective evidence. Correcting the record in 2025 could not undo decades of influence, but it signaled that fraudulent authorship is not acceptable.
You may hear that acknowledgments disclosed company involvement. That's not authorship transparency. Thanking staff for scientific support is not the same as stating that corporate scientists drafted the paper. The retraction forces a harder question. When consensus rests on undisclosed authorship and selective data, how much trust should you place in that consensus?
Some regulators now say they did not depend on this specific article for their final glyphosate conclusions. The larger issue remains, once a review this prominent saturates the literature and public dialogue. It shapes what gets studied, what gets cited, and how risk is framed, often for a generation.
This isn't an isolated case. Across biomedicine, retractions have risen markedly, with misconduct, data falsification, fabrication, and undisclosed conflicts playing a central role. Ghostwriting has surfaced in high-profile drug stories where marketing departments influenced manuscripts and unfavorable findings stayed buried.
There are stark examples of harm when manipulated science steers practice. Blockbuster drugs have later been linked to elevated cardiovascular events after years on the market, with internal data withheld or downplayed. Replication attempts in oncology routinely fail, yet those papers guide multi-million-dollar development choices.
The lesson for you is not cynicism but discernment. When you encounter backed by science, ask who funded the work, which datasets were excluded, and whether authorship and conflicts are fully disclosed. Ask how the findings were used in regulation and whether independent studies reached different conclusions.
Your daily choices still matter. If you want to lower glyphosate exposure, choose foods grown without routine herbicide use. Prioritize organic or regeneratively farmed options when possible, and minimize highly processed foods derived from herbicide-tolerant commodity crops like corn, soy, and wheat. Each step trims your overall chemical burden.
Apply the same principle to healthcare decisions. Seek approaches that identify root causes, nutrition, environmental exposures, metabolic health, and toxic load, rather than defaulting to lifelong symptom suppression. When you evaluate advice, favor transparency, full data access, and reproducibility over authority alone.
You can also examine signals of influence in any consensus. Look for clustering of authors across multiple favorable papers, recurring industry ties, and reviews that lean heavily on unpublished or proprietary data. Note how quickly unfavorable studies are dismissed versus how readily favorable ones are amplified.
The retraction underscores how gold standard narratives can ride on undisclosed authorship and selective evidence. Waiting for institutions to self-correct can leave you exposed for years. Practicing vigilance, reading acknowledgments, scanning conflict of interest statements, and comparing independent analyses helps you navigate beyond headlines.
When you hear that thousands of studies were reviewed, remember that volume isn't the same as independence. Ask how many were funded by stakeholders, how many raw data sets are publicly accessible, and whether long-term outcomes match short-term endpoints. These are practical filters you can use today.
You're not powerless in a complex landscape. Each purchase, each question you ask a practitioner, and each minute you spend reading source materials shifts your trajectory. The glyphosate episode confirms that truth can be delayed, but still emerges. Your health decisions should not wait for delayed corrections.
Here's your challenge. Over the next 7 days, pick 3 staple items you buy most often. 1 grain product, 1 processed snack, and 1 produce item. Check labels and sourcing, replace each with an option grown without routine herbicide use, and bookmark 1 primary source study to read past the abstract. Then note how those changes affect what ends up in your cart next week. Thank you for watching Dr. Mercola's Cellular Wisdom. We'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe now and click the notification bell so you never miss an update. See you in the next video.